here on Business Unusual on Newsroom Africa Channel 405, taking a look at some of the challenges faced by young women in the workplace. Still with me in studio is Lebo Nke from Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. She's also brought in a 22-year-old job seeker, Thandi Zikalala, and we'll say a bit more about Thandi's job search. But safe to say, Thandi, welcome to Business Unusual this afternoon. And before we even start, I mean, we know you were searching for a job, but it seems you have some good news for us. Do share.
Okay. Well, today I signed a contract with Harambee, and they helped me get a job. So
what kind of job?
Well, I signed a contract with FNB.
Okay, okay. But just talk to us briefly, I guess, about the job search that you had. You were telling me off air that you grew up in the East Rand of the Joburg City region, and you've now moved to the inner city because of some of the challenges you had with your job search and the cost of just moving around.
Yeah, well, I have to say it was really difficult to find work that side because, I mean, it's not really an area where you have many opportunities open. So I felt it was better to come to the CPD to look for work. And so, yeah, it helped me cut costs as well in terms of the traveling. And I feel it was a good move.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of the challenges that you think are unique to you as a young black female South African that might not be shared by some of your male counterparts when it comes to the job search? We've mentioned the issue of transport, but one would think also there's all manner of hazards, in particular for young ladies like yourself.
Well, I have to say, well, we have difficulties in terms of the things we have to do at home to start with. Before you can go out and look for work, you have to look after your family, you have to ensure that the house is clean, you have to make sure that everybody else is happy before you can do what you have to do. And in terms of getting into the workspace, the moment you walk into those areas and you start searching for work, they first look at how you appear in terms of how young you appear, and you get undermined in terms of the abilities you have. Yep. And when you do get a job, eventually, you don't get the job you'd have expected to get. So you'd get the minimal activities in the work area instead of getting actual work that challenges you.
Yeah, yeah. Lebo, I mean, some of the issues that Thandi is raising here are big issues across sectors, not just in the sectors where you happen to match young people with work opportunities. You hear stories of people being undermined, people being given lowly scoped work, and of course that limits the prospects of them being able to grow, and even being judged on all manner of other things, and on the worst end of things, in some cases also expected to provide sexual favors in order to advance in the workplace. What are some of the things that can and ought and should be done to address some of these issues and effectively make it a much safer and hazardless space for young people like Thandi to go into the workplace?
I mean, I think this requires like a lot of consciousness from employers. You know, a lot of this in terms of like, you know, unfair questions and whatnot that get asked during interviews, I think comes from some form of an unconscious bias that people actually just really aren't even aware that they're thinking that way. So, you know, the question, do you have children? Actually, you know, most of the time it's women who answer yes.
And should it matter?
And exactly, you know, should it matter or not? But like, you know, it's so interesting that question generally gets posed to women rather than to men. And actually, it's the women who generally tend to say yes and not the men, wondering where these...
And it's often weird for me, Lebo, when we speak about work-life balance, right? Where we say people must be able, yes, to balance their life in general and, of course, their life at work. It's often a conversation that's just targeted at women. And it's just, you know, a rhetorical commitment to work-life balance. And yet, you know, if I call in the afternoon and say my child is sick, I need to look after my child, that's seldom a responsibility expected of men, but it's society, an expectation of
exactly.
women.
So, I mean, I think that the cultural responsibilities that women have are really, really huge. And it's time that we think about these things differently, starting from our homes as parents also, just starting to think about how work is actually divided up. So, you know, it was very interesting on the issue of driver's license, talking to a young lady who said that she wasn't allowed to get a driver's license until her brother got one. So, you know, because her brother didn't have one, she had to wait in line until she got that. You know, she was very clearly keen and eager to be able to get one. And maybe who knows if her brother was or not, but that shouldn't matter. And so I really think so from parents from home to employers to everyone who's just involved in this labor market that connects young people into work.
Yeah.
I think that we really, really have to be conscious of it. You spoke to an employer last week who was telling me that they're doing things slightly differently now in terms of trying to reach young women who don't have the time to get to come to an interview, that they're conducting some Skype or over the phone interviews and over the screen, like Skype type interviews, just so that they can get like those first interviews out of the way, and if they're really sure, then you can start to spend your money. So I just think it's like little, and that's about being like aware, and I think conscious.
And I think talking about that awareness, I mean, Thandi, if you could just paint a picture for us of the costs that were associated before you moved to the city, the costs associated with just going to Harambee in the inner city as part of the program that you are part of. I mean, what did that involve?
I mean, I must say, if you look at how much you have to pay every day to travel from Benoni getting to Johannesburg CBD is quite a lot. And it depends also which area exactly from Benoni you come from as well. So, I mean, if you are further away from the actual main city in Benoni, you still have to travel there as well. And I must say, those costs are pretty high, and you also have to manage your money in terms of being able to look after your family as well. Because, I mean, if you have to go and buy bread, you have to go and ensure that your brothers and sisters get transport money to go to school, and make sure that everybody at home is happy. I mean, that's quite a lot of money to spend. And
does that worry you now? Now that you've just signed your contract, does it worry you that sort of, I wouldn't call it a burden, but of course that weight of expectation on you and your salary, does that worry you?
I must say, it worried me at first, but I feel that at least I'd be able to help out.
It must also be exciting, I mean, I would think as well, right?
It is. I mean, it's a new experience, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to do more and make everybody else feel comfortable as well.
Yeah. Thandi, we have a lot of people who watch this particular show, who are out there looking for work, who are sending in their CVs, who are really tired of getting rejection letters. You ask them, we regret to inform you that. I mean, what words of advice, encouragement, or even insight would you share with them?
Honestly, I must say, they shouldn't give up, because it is going to take a lot of work and a lot of time to actually get something. But the first doors that should come to are Harambee's doors. I mean, those people will do their best to ensure that you are able to get something at the end of the day. Even if you feel that you are incompetent or you are unable to do work or you've been rejected multiple times, Harambee will make sure that you're happy at the end of the day. Sure.
Lebo, I mean, if you look at the numbers that came through from Stats SA last week, it's quite interesting, and very few of us, I guess, in the world of media touched on this, which was, yes, indeed, we saw a rise in our unemployment rate to around 29% by the strict definition. But if you look at that number of people that are discouraged from seeking work, we saw a decline in that, which means more and more people who had given up the job search in the last quarter, or in the preceding quarter, had decided in the quarter where we saw this rise in our unemployment to go out and seek work. How big a role do you think the likes of programs like Harambee and many other programs that aim to transition young people through viable pathways into work play in encouraging more and more young people to pick up the job search?
Well, I really hope that we've made, we're part of and have contributed to that impact and that shift. Because I really think that hope is such an important thing, and the currency of hope cannot be undermined. And so even though there may not be enough jobs out there for everyone and people are seeking and seeking all the time, it really is important to stay in that positive frame of mind. And I mean, I think that in that way, at least when you're dealing with hopeful people, we can then come up with better solutions. So I think, just shifting people out of like that discouraged work seeker group into now actively seeking, I think is a move in a positive direction.
Awesome stuff. Lebo and Thandi, thank you so much for your time. And I guess the one responsibility emerging from what as Lebo has just said, is also a responsibility for all of us as individuals to provide the necessary psychosocial and moral support to everybody who's out there seeking work, which is a job in and of itself, I must add. And that's important because you do need to be supported in a space that can effectively be very demoralizing.